Hey everybody, welcome back to the 43rd episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Design the Everything, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. I remember things. How you doing, Harrison?
Doing pretty good. Tired, but well.
So, I know you have a bigger thing to talk about later. Can I talk about something I'm excited about first, and then we can focus on your thing?
Go for it.
I've spent the last, probably 8 work hours figuring out my new wireless probe that I bought immediately after the podcast last week.
Okay. Let's hear about it.
It's been a little bit more challenging than I envisioned.
Okay.
There's, the normal just calibration stuff like you'd have to do, dial in the run out, all that stuff. That worked just like the other probe, like the Tormach probe, but it was, if anything, a little bit easier because you adjust the run out kind of like a 4-jaw chuck instead of their weird 3-screw system the Tormach ones has. And I found it much easier to dial in. But then when it comes to actually using the probe, we ran into some challenges. So one, the probe has to be woken up before you can use it to, probe things.
So how do you do that?
So how do you wake up the probe? The instructions say just to touch the probe tip and just like push on it with your finger. That's fine when you're just like, going to probe in a work coordinate system. It is less fine when you are going to run the probe unattended.
Okay.
So
you have a tool setter, right?
I do have a tool setter.
Can you probe the tool setter and have it check the tool setter? Like have it like do like a measure of the tool?
That is almost exactly what I do. The only difference is I am not actually measuring the length of the tool probe.
You're just doing like a wear offset?
I'm not measuring the length. I am just running the probe into the side of the tool setter very lightly. Like I'm probing it horizontally instead of vertically.
So when it goes to probe, does it wake up fast enough to catch it?
No, it does not.
Okay.
And actually, if you go to probe with the probe asleep, it will error out because the probe when asleep looks like it is being pressed, like it is being activated. And so if you go to start a probing routine, it'll throw an error, which is good because then it won't probe when it's asleep. So I'm actually just doing a G1 like feed move into the side of the tool setter, just very slowly, very lightly. It's only going in like 50 thou, and it just kind of does a little boop, and that wakes up the probe, and then I go and continue the probing routine. And I have that.
How long does it stay awake for?
3 minutes.
Okay.
So I wrote a macro, which is my first time writing a macro to do that. I didn't know how to do it earlier today. I was talking to some people, and now I do. There's no logic in my macro to check if the probe is awake or not, because I couldn't figure out how to do that. And so right now it's just a manual NC that I pass through, like through the manual NC code to call that macro. The macro is stored in the macros folder, but then I can call that macro from a program.
That's cool because
I just do it manually.
Is it like a subroutine or is it like how does it treat that? Do you just have like a call out or like how do you call it?
So it's like you do O, the letter O, not the number 0, O, and then the program name, and then call.
Gotcha. So that's where the O program numbers come from.
Yes.
Because Haas won't let you post a program unless it has an O number.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And it's really annoying because I'm used to just naming my programs whatever.
Yep.
But all your programs have to have an O number.
Oh,
and and it's really, really annoying. For that, it makes complete sense. And like on the Haas, I know you can call other programs basically like a subroutine or something where you just call another program based on its own number. But if you're constantly using it as a job shop, I don't care what the O number is. I'm just running one program or 2 programs. I'm not running this complicated thing. And so we just have one O number that we just, every time we write a program for it, we use the same O number. We're always overriding it.
Yeah. In my last job, we had an old machine. Actually, that machine's gone now finally, but it was literally like 40 or 50 years old, and it could only have program names that were between 1 and 99.
Oh, man.
And actually, it might have been between 1 and 256. I don't know. It got really annoying really fast and kind of became a problem that there was a limited number of programs.
Yeah.
So there were we basically used program number 123 as our we just need to quickly do this whatever thing.
Yeah.
But okay, anyway, back to the probe. So I got that worked out. I got the macro done. I figured out the macros. I used variables inside G-code for the first time so that if I move my probe setter, I can just change the variables. Got that working. All right, ran the first program with that. And you want to guess what happened 3 minutes later into the program after the probe was being used?
Going from the fact that in our conversation today, you're talking about spindle protection, I'm going to guess that you ran the spindle up.
No, fortunately, I did not do that.
Oh, okay.
No, the probe fell asleep. And when the probe falls asleep, it looks to the machine as if the probe has been accidentally triggered.
Which is good.
Which, in this case, it's not good because it means I only get 3 minutes of G-code after I use the probe in a program. And then the machine errors out.
Oh, no.
So then we had to go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to keep the machine from freaking out when the probe goes back to sleep.
Oh, no.
And I was doing some digging around. I was talking to people, and we figured out that it was possible by editing the HAL file, which is the hardware abstraction layer, inside the Linux CNC part of PathPilot, which I have done before because I've run or I've built several Linux CNC machines. So I'm familiar with that. It's a nightmare and indecipherable, but I've done it before. And so I started looking into that, and I was doing research. And one of the people that I've gotten some of the probing routines from before, his name is David Loomis, goes by Zoom Speed with an X, XOOM Speed. And I got looking around his website, and he had some kind of useful stuff and about probing routines. And I got looking, and it turns out he has a piece of software that is a Python plugin that will prevent the spindle from running if there is a probe in the spindle. So if tool 99's in, it won't turn on the spindle.
Mm-hmm.
And the and that's nice, I guess, because I don't want to try to drill with my spindle.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that one of the features he added in in his update log is now that same code will prevent false trips when the probe is not in the spindle.
Oh, really?
And that fixed my issue. So now the probe falling asleep, not a problem.
Correct me if I'm wrong, is there a probe protection setting in
PathPilot?
PathPilot?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
There's no settings there, at least none that are visible to the user.
Okay.
So I got that software. It's just a Python script uploaded from Zoom Speed, and that fixed that. Then there was this probe handles the speeds that you probe at need to be a little bit different, and that took some tweaking. It basically, I think that it has some internal debounce settings, and if you probe too fast, it freaks out that debounce. But I slowed down my rough probing speed by half, and that fixed it.
Gotcha.
So now we have a fully functional wireless in my ATC probe. Took a little bit of tinkering, and I actually sent an email to the guy who makes it. And was like, this is what I did. If somebody else buys it for a Tormach, this is what they need to know so that it'll help future users. And then I gave, and then I donated $5 to Zoom Speed.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. And I learned the macro programming, which I wanted to do because I have another project, which isn't really much of a project, but I have several pallets now that I can put on my machine, and they are all small enough that I can fit multiple different pallets on there. So, for example, I can do op1, op2. I could do pry bars, op1s and pry bars, or op2s and then pry bars. And though the code for those programs isn't necessarily in the same Fusion file, and I wanted to be able to do night runs where I run both programs.
So this is where you totally need to get into the John Grimsmo method and have some screws tapped on the side and have just a master program that uses the probe in specific locations, and then it'll call the program. So basically you could have pallet 1 and pallet 2, and then you could have some screws on the side, and then you could just see, is this pallet here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it is, then log it. is this pallet here? If it is, log it. And then you could run whatever program number.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that in mind, you could have one master program that you never change, and you just update the programs, but you never actually call them. The master program does.
I would love to get to that point at some point. My plan in the meantime is to make a list of all the programs that are on pallets that I'll run regularly. And I will just, as a master program, and I will just comment out the ones I don't want to run and uncomment the ones that I want to run.
Gotcha.
So that way, as I'm getting ready for the night run, I can just choose, I want this one and this one, go, and then walk away.
Gotcha. That's cool.
So, but basically to do that, I needed to know how to call a program from a program. And it turns out it's really simple. You just put an O in front of the name of the program and hit call at the end.
Oh, so does it have to be like a number, or can it be like a text field?
It can be a text field. You just wrap it in carets. So open caret,
gotcha.
Name a program, close caret, call.
Come on, Haas. You listening? We need this on your guys' machine. So, okay, that's cool. I like the direction you're going, because that's going to make it, if as time goes on, I understand you're not there today, but as time goes on, you can build dedicated pallets for dedicated parts, and then you can load them up at any time, and in theory, just hit go, and the machine will figure out everything it needs to figure out. You could even have your pallets where, say you have like a binary system, say 4 screw holes in the front, and depending on which ones are there and which ones are not, it'll relate to a number. And then you could have another 4 at the end, and that could determine if, it could pick your program. But if your program could run, like, say for your keychains, your orange slices, where you have multiple materials, if you have all the right tooling and you have different speeds and feeds, you could run the same pallet and then just change what material it is by which screw you put it in.
Yeah, I was also thinking that you could use it to have 2 different stock sizes. So, like, if you had a pallet that, could run for 6 hours, but you could also do a version of that pallet that has half the material and only runs for 3 hours. That could be really handy.
Yeah, because then in theory you could set everything up offline. Because if you get enough pallets to the point where you're constantly loading and unloading pallets, you can get everything set up and get your screws set, and then that's where it becomes a lot more user-friendly, because then when the machine's done, you take the old pallet off, put the new pallet on, and you just hit go on the exact same program. You're not trying to file down and figure out what combination of pallets you're doing. So that's awesome.
And let's see, the only other really real news that's been happening is our powder coat oven broke.
Oh no.
We were looking at buying a new powder coat oven. We decided to buy a new powder coat oven. We tried to buy a powder coat oven, and the company that we wanted to buy the powder coat oven from, they never got back to us.
Okay.
And one of the other options we looked at was just changing the temperature controller and the oven we have, because really the only problem we have is the temperature controller, and our current oven sucks. And I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, that'd be a fun project. I'll do that. And so I was like, okay. And I just bought the $30 temperature controller instead of the new oven, which was a good idea. And then literally the same day the new temperature controller showed up, the old temperature controller fried itself.
Oh, no. Well,
and so I was like, well, I guess this is perfect timing. So
yeah,
my dad's going to come over tomorrow and install it. I have a couple packages that that's another story. But I have a couple packages that are waiting for powder coat before I can ship them. So those will have to go tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow's 4th of July. Those will have to go on the 5th.
So we had our first Amazon sale.
Ooh. I didn't know you guys were going to Amazon.
Well, I didn't know we were on Amazon, to be fair. So Weston's been working on this in the background, and he's been working on it for a couple months. And he didn't even know that we were on Amazon yet.
Interesting.
And so we just came in. He came in this morning because we worked a half day today. And he's like, by the way, we got our first Amazon sale. I was like, we're on Amazon?
Yeah.
He's like, apparently.
It a deck defender?
Yeah.
Nice.
So pretty excited about that. I mean, it's something we've been trying to do, but it's apparently a very long and painful process. And I
have set up our Amazon side, but never actually listed a product there.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know if it's going to be worth it or not, but we'll give it a shot.
Very cool.
So yeah. And I dropped off some more of those muzzle devices or muzzle parts today. And it sounds like the guy we're selling them to, or the guy who's selling them that we're making them for, it sounds like he might have two websites, two other companies lined up that he's going to be sell them to.
Okay, cool.
And so that might be another couple hundred sales already. So that's exciting. Hopefully this thing just keeps snowballing and growing like crazy.
That's definitely what you want.
Because we haven't been paid a dime yet for any of the work that we've done on these.
Oh, really?
Mm-mm.
Oh, because you're on like net 30 with the ones you've delivered?
So this project's been drawn out for probably 6 months at this point. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't paid us for any of the work because he was just kind of a contingency. Like, I'm going to buy X amount, but we got to make sure we can get everything figured out first. And so we've been doing all of the R&D work out of our own pockets. Now, to be fair, he would pay us if we really needed him to. But because of how long of a lead time he was giving us, it was like the materials aren't that expensive. It's just our time for the most part. And so we did that. And then when he placed this large order, that's when we put him on a net 30. And he's supposed to pay us this week. So he didn't have the money today, but he should have it later this week. And so we should end up getting paid for everything this week. But up to this point, we haven't been paid for anything that we've done, which some people might say is dumb, but we've done a lot of work with this guy. He's constantly using our services, and I know where he lives, and I can see his business really close by. So
is he a customer for other things as well?
Yes.
Okay, that makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, so he sends us Cerakote work, gun work, slide milling, Cerakote work, and barrel threadings, and some other odds and ends. So we've done work for him, and he's never complained about paying whenever we ask him to pay. So I've never been worried because if I want to get paid. Now, granted, most of the stuff that we've been doing from him hasn't been over like $300 up to this point. So this is like a massive, massive, massive increase in what he normally pays us. But he had all his money tied up in fireworks, and so that's what he was waiting for because he does the fireworks stands as well.
Yeah.
So he had a ton of money in that, and obviously 4th of July is tomorrow, so he's gonna have everything sold off and be flush with cash again. So that's what we're waiting for.
What else did I have? Oh, also my saw died, and I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, your saw died? Like your bandsaw?
Yeah, my bandsaw died on me.
What type of bandsaw do you have? Is it the Grizzly one that like every machine shop under the sun has?
If I can stop sneezing here, I'll talk.
I'm about to sneeze too.
I had the Harbor Freight one.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you post a video or something on that? Because I think I saw. Actually, it's the red one from Harbor Freight, isn't it? Because I think I saw you post a story on it. Like you were cutting it or something, and then it locked up, and it just like fried the motor, and you weren't sure if it had thermal protection.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I was cutting, and when the material finished cutting, it got...
Man, you got some dust in here over there. You got cats? I got too many cats. That's where I get my sneezing from.
There's no cats in here, but I think I'm getting a cold or something. Gosh. Okay, so the material finished cutting through, and then it wedged itself at an angle and jammed up the blade and kept the blade from moving. And at the time, we were sandblasting, so there was a shop vac. There was there's a shop vac running. There was a sandblaster running. There was an air compressor running. And I wasn't, standing there by the saw. And the mill was probably running too. And tumblers. So, it was just one more noise in the background, and I was just waiting for the noise to stop. It was making noises. Eventually, the noises stopped. I walked over there, found the material at a 45-degree angle, tried to get it out. It was very stuck. I got it out and noticed the motor was very hot. And so then, of course, I tried to turn it back on again, and it didn't turn back on. So I found out that there may actually be a thermal fuse inside the motor that I might be able to remove. It is not like a resettable thermal reset device like most higher end, well, even not super low end motors have. But I haven't opened it up to get to it. So my saw may or may not be dead. I thought about just buying a new saw. I could have sworn these saws were like $175. And at that point, it's almost cheaper just to get a new one than to get a new motor. But they're actually like $350.
Yeah.
So I'll try to fix it.
They might have been like 100 some odd bucks, at least on sale.
I think it was like $175 when I bought it, probably with a 20% off coupon. Yeah,
because they used to be really cheap. Because we have that exact same saw. Because I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, I recognize that red saw. Because that's what we had before we got our Ranger saw. We had it on the farm for many years. It's still technically out up on the farm.
It was not the best saw I've ever ran, but like it worked and it was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do some modifications to it the other day because I was trying to cut 2x6 steel, 2 inches by 6 inches wide. Yeah. And like I had to file down some bolts to get just like a little bit more clearance so that it would fit all the way through, and it was kind of a diagonal. But yeah, 2 inches by 6 inches of steel, and with those modifications, it managed it. So yeah, I mean, it was a fine saw. It wasn't a great saw. It was fine.
Yeah, got the job done. That's what matters.
So hopefully I can fix it here. If I can't just find a motor, I may look at used saws on like Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
Part of me just wants a cold saw because they cut more square and leave better finishes.
We have one of those, or we've used. My dad has one of those, I should say, and we were using that for a little while. It was so loud; it made such a mess. And we used it a lot on aluminum, and at least in aluminum specifically. And we were cutting thick enough aluminum that it would just clog up all the teeth. It would get too hot, it would melt into the teeth, and it'd just clog it.
See, that's interesting, because I used one in my last job, and I never had any problems with it. And maybe it was just kind of slower, like high torque, slow speed. But it wasn't super, super blazing fast, but it would just kind of chew through material and like, yeah, you'd have a pile of chips there, but no worse than with the bandsaw.
Our bandsaw properly set up will cut aluminum way faster than the other.
Yeah, I don't know if this was necessarily faster, but it left nicer finishes and more square cuts.
And square cut wise, the bandsaw can drift sometimes if you're not careful. At least ours does. But with the right blades and the right feeds and speeds, it cuts aluminum faster and with a better finish than the cold saw did. So
fair enough.
That's just been our experience, and it could be a combination of having a crappy cold cut saw or a crappy blade, or I would say a nice bandsaw, but it's not a nice bandsaw. It's kind of crappy too. I know. So at my old job, they had like a $25,000 bandsaw, and then they had like an $80,000 to $90,000 bandsaw.
Okay, wow.
And their 20 to 25,000 bandsaw, it was just like a really nice Granger bandsaw. I say that. That's putting it to shame. It was a ridiculously nice bandsaw, but it wasn't like an auto feed, or it wasn't anything special. Like, it didn't have any amazing features. It was just a bandsaw, but it cut really fast and it was really accurate. So in that sense, it was good. And then they had another one that could cut whole bundles of material, and it was an automatic.
Is yours like hydraulic feed or anything like that?
It's a hydraulic damper.
Okay. I actually have one of those that somebody gave me for this saw that I never installed.
I don't know if the hydraulic dampers made that big a difference for us. It seems like you just set the tension with the spring, and then the damper helps some, but like it doesn't make too big a difference. Honestly, blade selection makes the bigger difference. And then the only thing that I wish, so the university I teach at has almost the exact same looking bandsaw blade. Like aesthetically, it's that same Granger style with one difference. And that one difference is our Granger bandsaw blade has 3 pulley settings that you can adjust to adjust your speed. And the one at the university I teach at, it looks almost identical, except it's got a gear selector where you can change your gears just by flipping a knob, and that would be so much nicer.
That is nice, yeah.
So
I don't think I've ever changed the speed on mine. I think it's always just been on its slowest setting.
Yeah, we had ours on the slowest setting. We increased, and it was slower than the cold cut saw. Whenever we did that, we just bumped it up to the second to slowest, or the middle of the road, somewhere in there. And because I don't remember, it might be it's a 4 or 5 speed. I don't remember how many speeds it has. It's more than 3. It might be 4. I don't think it's 5. It might just be 4. We bumped it up one level, and it cuts way faster. So
that makes sense. That follows.
Yeah, but I was worried it would wear out the blades faster.
Yep. That's why I run mine as slow as possible.
But, and, one of these days I might have more space, and then I can have a couple blades, or a couple different bandsaws set up with different blades, which might be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so let's talk about this whole you may have more space thing.
So, for the last, I don't know, probably close to a month, we've been working on negotiations for a new building. And paperwork has been signed, and right now everything's just going through the final closing processes, and everyone's in agreement, and it looks like we're going to be getting a new building.
Woo!
So it's the history of this building is pretty interesting. So it's kind of halfway in between me and Weston's house. So the old building we were in was on my parents' property, in my grandparents' house, garage area. So rent was nice because it was free. So that's going to suck. But we were just kind of in an open area, and it was small, and it was quite a drive for me, but it was pretty close to Weston. Now the drive's going to be kind of split 50-50. I'm going to be a little bit closer than he is, but it'll be like a 8-minute drive for me and like an 11-minute drive for him, or 12-minute drive for him. So it'll be kind of right smack dab in the middle. And it's going to be on a major road, right off of a major road that gets a lot of traffic. And so walk-ins are going to be a lot easier. And it's going to 4x our shop space at a minimum.
That's nice.
Because we're in the garage is a 40 by 40, and we're in a half or less than half of that. And the new building is a 40 by 80, with the possibility of having a second floor in some areas. So we'd like to have offices in the front, and I'd like to have a second floor. And there's talks. I don't know if it'll actually happen, but I'd like to bring anodizing in-house, and I'd put that upstairs above the offices.
So my building's a 30 by 60.
Okay.
And we use maybe half of that realistically.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have some kind of room down at the end that we could use. And it's just like right now, basically like my household type tools and like some stuff for my wife. So like we can't expand into that, but really we're fine with about 30 by 30. So yeah, you guys will have a huge amount of room there.
And what's nice is it's going to have 3-phase.
Woo! That's the main thing we're missing here.
And what's kind of cool is the history of this building. I've actually been in this building when I was a kid. So it's been in the family once before. My uncle owned it and had it as a cabinet shop. And that's where he started his business. And then he grew out of it and sold it and moved into a larger shop. The person he sold it to is who we're buying it from. Although technically it's from the son-in-law. The guy that bought it from my uncle passed away, and he gave it to his wife and her husband, and the husband's the one that's selling it, which is part of the reason we've had some problems with getting all the paperwork nailed down. The wife was a little bit sentimental about it because it was her father's, and after he passed, it was one of the few things that she still had that kind of reminded him of her, or her of him. And so she wasn't quite ready to give it up. Like she was, but not emotionally. And so she wanted to, after we'd come to an agreement on everything, she wanted to take a few days and have the lawyers look at paperwork, which I didn't really understand because we got all the paperwork from a title company. So we didn't write it up ourselves. We just brought a normal title contract.
Yeah.
But anyways, regardless of all the hassle, for a little while, I wasn't sure if we were going to get it, but it's looking like we're going to get it. So,
well, that's awesome. Did you get to take possession right away?
No, it'll be end of September. So they initially said September 15th, but they've pushed it back to September 30th, which is ironically also my birthday. So
okay,
it's going to be the best birthday present ever. New shop.
Just get a new shop, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're looking forward to that. we're going to probably not move into it for probably 6 months from taking possession, if I had to guess. And the reason for that is kind of twofold. One is once we have possession of the building, that's when we need to start the process to move our FFL over, and that takes 6 months. Oh, really?
Okay.
So that's a built-in 6 month. So we're not going to be able to move out of the old shop fully until the FFL transfers over.
Interesting.
So whenever we file that, we have to wait 6 months.
Okay.
So that's built in. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to completely renovate the shop.
Okay.
Because it's a good shop, but excuse me, there's a lot of stuff we want to do. And what I want to do is I want to build out a master plan of what my dream layout of the shop would look like, but I'm not going to have anywhere near enough money to pull it off. But what I want to do is I want to go in and I want to get everything that we can or that needs to be done at the beginning done. So like it's got some 1-inch insulation, some solid foam insulation, and it creaks and has some leaks. It's a metal frame, but it's got wooden cross beams with sheet metal bolted to it. And the sheet metal's, I don't know, like 30, 40 years old. And the screws are starting to wear out, and it's got leaks, and it's got some ingress points, and the foam's kind of damaged. And the electrical looks like it was put together by a rat. And so I just kind of want to rip everything down. I would like to ideally close cell foam just like an inch. And what that can do is it can actually make the building not creak because it can add a lot of rigidity. And so there's just a lot of different little things that I'd like to do to the building when I have everything ripped out of it. And then we're probably not even going to add offices in there initially. Like I would be fine with it just being an open shell. But if it had good insulation and good electrical, everything else I can add in after the fact. Those are kind of my two major points that I want to get done, and maybe the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say, do the floor.
I'd love to epoxy coat the floor, and the bathroom needs to be addressed. The bathroom is teeny tiny, and so I need to have a layout of where I want the offices to go because I'd like to have the bathroom integrate into the offices. I'd like to have a door going into the office and a door going into the shop. So
I wish I'd done the floors before we moved in here, and I wish we had a bathroom. So, but the floors are, I mean, the bathroom's just not going to happen in the shop. It's too impractical to get it set up out here.
Yeah.
But the floors we could have done, but now that we have all of our equipment and stuff, like I've just accepted that it's not happening.
Yeah. So at our current shop, we just have the concrete floor, and you can see a lot of like coolant stains or oil stains. And I would like to get a nice epoxy floor. And I know you can buy the kits relatively cheap, and I'm fine with doing all the work myself. Like I would pull all my electrical cable. I'd like to put in an air line. You got that rapid air system, right?
Yes.
I want to do that. Ideally, because the shop is big enough that it's going to support a lot of machines, I'd like to do 2-inch rapid air.
Wow. Okay.
and a loop all the way around, and then go down to a smaller tubing to the machines. But I'd like to have a 2-inch supply line, go do a full lap around the shop. That way I can pull from anywhere if I add stuff in.
Yeah, I have a full loop, but I think I have 3/4 inch. It might be a 1-inch, all the way around.
Yeah, and I might be able to get by with
plenty for me, but
I might be able to get by with less. But I'm trying to plan on worst case scenario with as many machines as I can fit in there.
Yeah, and you can fit a lot of machines in there.
Yeah, so although I was laying stuff out, and the Doosan that I was looking at, it's the Dream Machine. It was the DNM 5700, and it took up, if you look at the prints that Doosan gives for that machine, it's like 18 foot wide by like 12 foot deep or more. And it's like, yeah, you can only fit like 4 of those or 3 of those in there or something. Like it's like you can't fit very many of those in there. But it's out so big because it's got a spindle chiller and a conveyor system, and like, so like there's a lot of room around it, but that's like the footprint it gives. And so like I need to build out the actual models because there's probably more room than what it shows. Just putting the footprint down.
Yeah.
So
They probably have some room built into that footprint for maintenance and stuff.
yeah, and they'll have like access panels that they want to swing wide and all that stuff.
Do you have room on that plot of land to expand if needed? Could you build an addition? And still have a parking lot?
Yeah, not easily. You could technically go out the back, but then you wouldn't have if we're going to do a wraparound. So right now there's not really a good place for semis to pull in. So we'd like to. It's on a corner lot, and if we could put a pad around the backside and around the front, that way semis could go around the full building, so they could pull in, drop off, and then pull out back to the highway. Because right now they could pull in, but then they'd have to back out onto the highway, and there's not enough room for them to turn around. So the only way that they could pull in is if they pulled in and then went around the backside of the building. And even then, it's going to be really tight for them to make that turn. So that would be about the only way. And then we can't go. So if you're looking at the building, we can't go north and we can't go west. We could potentially go south a little bit, but that would be like extending the building sideways, and that's the side where the parking lot would be.
Okay.
So
the answer is no. It does not make sense to expand your building.
Yeah. So ideally make it nice, use it, and then if we move out of it, turn it into a commercial space that we can rent or sell.
Yeah.
And we got it for cheap.
So would you rent out half of your building now because you just don't need that much space?
Potentially with the right business. I'd have no problem doing that.
Because then you can basically just pay you can pay for the property, justify having the property with just that one tenant there in the other half.
Yeah.
And then, everything else is free money.
The only downside to that would be the bathroom situation. Because there's only going to be one bathroom because the plumbing on it, it's only in one location in the whole building. So it's just like a tiny corner. And the master plan of doing all the offices and everything. And then your electrical and all that. So like it could be done, but it'd have to be the right person. And if it was like they were renting it out for storage or something, that'd be really easy. But if they wanted to run their business in addition to ours, I'd just have to, because I probably wouldn't want to put a divider. So it'd have to be someone that we could work with occupying the same space. And there,
if you're getting, so you probably don't need the full space for another, 5 years. And if you could get $1,000 a month for the next 5 years, like,
oh yeah, it definitely grease the wheels for sure. And that's something that I would definitely consider. But I imagine we're going to fill up that space a lot faster than 5 years. I could definitely see us outgrowing it in 5 years, pretty easily. Now, is that going to happen? I have no earthly idea.
You can't predict the future.
Huh?
You don't know what's coming in the future.
I know, but I want to dream big. I want to dream that I'm going to grow that and outgrow that in 5 years. So because that'd be an awesome place to be. And it's totally doable. Like realistically, if I get in that space and then I can get more equipment in, used equipment cheap, because I'll have the space and the ability to do it, I think I could really increase our revenue enough to grow enough in 5 years to maybe move out. But I don't know. Plan for that, but I'm also going to build the building like I'm going to be in it for 20. So
but you could split the building in half. You might have to spend $1,000 or $5,000 to build a second bathroom, move plumbing around, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But spend a bunch of money, do that, split the building in two, stay in that building for the next 5 years, have a tenant in there paying, $1,000 a month or whatever. Then go buy another building and have two tenants in that building paying $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then they'll pay for your next new building.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that can be done. And we're definitely going to be looking at a lot of different options as we go forward. So it's exciting. It's going to be very stressful. It's going to eat up even more of my non-existent free time.
Yep. It's going to
But
cost you 4 times more than you expect because that's how buildings go.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we don't go bankrupt in the process, but
That would suck.
But it's what needs to happen for us to continue to grow as a business. Because with our current machines, I won't say we're maxed out because we're not, but we've hit the ceiling of what we can realistically get out of there already. Like, we haven't hit it every week, but we've definitely hit weeks where we are just tapped out for a couple weeks in a row, and we've seen the kind of money that brings in. And while it is very good money, and we've made a lot of money in a short amount of time for 2 people in a small building like we're in, for us to go to the next level, we need another spindle. And it's just it's going to be very challenging to fit another spindle in where we're at.
Yep.
Due to power and space. So
I agree. Now, let's see. If you replaced the Tormach with, I don't know, a VF or something, another mill, would you have enough room, or is that not even possible?
If it was that big machine that I just talked about, the D&M 5700, I don't think I could fit that in there, honestly. Like, trying to fit it into this new building and actually, like, putting down measurements and looking at it, I don't, like, my dad, like, I was having this conversation with him, he's like, oh, we could fit it in here, and, like, I'm laying it out in CAD in the new building, I'm like, no. Like, the biggest we could probably fit in there would maybe be a VF2. That'd probably be the biggest. So, the problem with the Doosan is the spindle chiller and the conveyor system. So if you took both of those off, it would save a lot of space. And the Haas's, I don't think they come with spindle chillers. So with those guys, I could definitely fit one of those in the shop. But if I'm going to go for a Doosan with a spindle chiller, it wouldn't fit.
I was looking at Doosans the other day. Did you know they have a little itty bitty lathe?
I think I saw something on it. I wasn't sure
how small.
It's like
a Leo 1600. It's kind of in the same category as the Haas CL1.
Interesting. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it other than that it exists. And they actually had the price online at like 53 grand, which is comparable with the Haas one. And nobody loves the CL1. Some people are like, it does a job. Some people hate it, but nobody loves it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of getting my next mill with a spindle chiller. I don't know. I don't want to burn out another machine or another spindle like because you can burn out the Haas ones if you run them to, like, if you get a higher RPM one, and we'd be running at probably 10,000, 12,000, whatever it maxes out at, we'd probably be running close to that most of the time.
Well, apparently you can burn out a kern if you run it hard all the time.
Yep.
So can't really blame Tormach too much.
No. But that is also 50,000 RPMs or 40,000 RPMs versus 10.
But also, that spindle costs more than our entire machine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Easily.
And he also crashed it a couple times.
Yeah.
And he got, 19,000 hours?
I don't remember what he said there, but
I think it was 19,000 hours. Was it 19,000? Or was it 1,009? No, it wasn't. It was more than 1,900. He's running that thing a lot. He's had it for 3 years.
Yeah, he runs it like 200 hours a week or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's got to be
200 hours in a week.
It's got to be like 19,000 hours.
There are not 200 hours in a week.
Oh, yeah.
He runs it like 120 hours a week.
There's
168 hours in a week.
Yeah, 168. That's what it was. I think he runs like between around 100 hours a week. So times 52 times 3. That's 15,000. 15,000.
Okay.
Hours. That sounds more like what he was at. I think it was around 15,000. I think they said, or maybe he was at 15,000 and they normally start to see problems around 19,000.
So he just got there a little bit early.
Yeah. And that's, they said 19,000 is the earliest, and I think they can go all the way up to like 25,000, but they can't run that. Those machines aren't push as hard as his is. But regardless, I know that I will be replacing spindles at some point, but I'd like to do what I can to avoid that. And also, if you're running them that hot or that fast without a spindle chiller for a long period of time, you also have a lot of growth in your spindle that you can have. So for accuracy reasons, it can be nice. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm dreaming, but I'm trying to dream big.
It has just occurred to me that I have not run my spindle warm-up cycle in like a month.
We do that every day that we run it.
Though, also my machine hasn't really set idle for more than 8 hours in like a month. So maybe it's fine.
Yeah, as long as you're running it at least once every 12 hours or 24 hours, I think you're okay.
I'm probably averaging, I'd say I might be averaging 12 hours of spindle on time a day right now.
I know Haas, whenever I got my lathe and I was talking to the technician, he says if you're running your Haas from one day to the next, you don't need a long warm up. You only need like a 3-minute warm up. But if it sits for more than a day, then they recommend a 15 to 20-minute warm up. And on the lathe, they actually say the lathe can go about 4 days between warm ups. Like it can go almost the whole weekend without needing a warm up routine, and that's just because it's on its side.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And so it doesn't need the warm up as much as the vertical ones.
Yeah, my machine has been running so much lately that I don't think it's got a chance to get cold.
Yeah, I still haven't had time to go change out the bearings in mine yet.
Yeah, but it's still making parts. So
it's still making parts, but man, it keeps getting louder and louder, and I feel like more and more of my torque is just disappearing in heat.
Probably.
Because like it just doesn't feel like it's got the same power that it used to, and I can just hear it, and I don't know. I say feel it, but it's you can almost feel it through the noise that it just doesn't. Power isn't making it where it needs to be.
Yep, it's not happy.
Yeah, so I just need to get some time to tear it down, which I might have, but we'll see. I keep saying that, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know, right? I keep saying that I'm going to be done shipping these carabiners, and that has still not happened.
How close are you?
Well, that brings up something else I didn't mention a second ago. We were at 33% shipped. However, we just found out that a order that was a batch that was dropped off at the post office has gone missing.
Oh no.
And 10 of those packages are just kind of gone. We originally thought it was more. So basically the story here is we got an email from a customer that was like, hey, nothing has happened on my shipping label. Like I see an order confirmation, I see tracking, but the label doesn't show a scan at arrival. It stayed there for 2 weeks. We went, oh, that's odd. And we sent him out a replacement. And then we had someone else send us an email. It's like, hey, are you ever going to ship these? And it was like, we did ship those. Then we checked the tracking. Sure enough, they were shipped on the same day, no movement on the label. And so then I checked a couple random orders, and there were, it seemed at the time, it seemed like that whole day, all of the orders were just lost somewhere. Oh, and man. So I went to bed. I woke up the next day. I investigated in a little bit more detail. Turns out half of the orders. And remembering back to that day, we shipped in 2 different batches. We put half of them in our mailbox, and we asked someone to drop the rest off at the post office for us. And upon talking to that person, it sounds like, I think they literally followed my instructions. Like they followed my instructions too literally when I told them where to leave them in the post office. And they maybe lacked some common sense. And I think they just left them on the table, like in the middle of the post office, like where all the P.O. boxes are, instead of putting them like behind the counter like you're supposed to ship a package.
Oh, no.
So those packages are just gone. But at least
they never got scanned in.
They never got scanned in. We were worried that they got stolen out of our mailbox, and I'm glad that it was just like a mistake that was on our end, even if it doesn't feel like my fault. It was still on our end. And so it means we're still safe to put stuff in our mailbox. It would be a huge pain if I had to drive, 25, 30 minutes each direction to the post office every day. So I can still put stuff in the mailbox. But
yeah,
there were, out of those like 10-ish orders that went missing, 7 of them were Kickstarter orders, and 3 of them were just regular website orders. And so I sent a message to everybody. It was like, oops, sorry. And most of the Kickstarter people were fine because it's like, oh, I didn't even know I was going to get it, because the Kickstarter backers generally don't care about timing. But a couple of the people who ordered on our store, they were Father's Day gifts that never showed up.
Ooh.
So there's a couple angry people there.
Yeah.
I offered to, no one's taken me up on this yet, but I offered to write a personal apology to their father.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know this, but I would have, like, I don't know, sent the guy a Starbucks gift card or a Lowe's gift card or something.
Yeah.
But nobody's taken up. And fun fact with customer service, generally the more generous you are, the less people take you up on it. So it pays to be more generous.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I don't know. That sucks. I need to we lost about $1,000 worth of product.
Yeah, that's painful.
Retail pricing. So we need to remake a bunch of stuff and reship a bunch of stuff. We can refund our shipping labels, so we at least don't lose our money from those. Because they were never scanned, so like,
and someone in the post office just walked off with $1,000 worth of carabiners.
I know, right? I checked Facebook Marketplace, and nobody's listed them.
Yeah. Oh, that's frustrating.
So, yeah, man, last week it was like, Bandsaw dies, and then a whole bunch of missing packages, and then the oven died, and
oh man, that's a rough week.
Yeah, but I don't know. These things happen, then you get back to work. Like,
yeah,
that's how it goes.
So, okay, what else we got going on? Man, just the new building's kind of eating up everything that I got right now. So we haven't even we haven't taken possession or anything, but my mind has just been racing with all the plans, and trying to lay out the front offices has been kicking my butt. Because so I'll run this past you and see what you think, because I had this thought and I'm not sure. So we're going to be out on a highway, and foot traffic is going to be a big thing. Taking over the building and putting a sign out front, we're going to get a lot of foot traffic, and it's on Highway 59, and there's a thing that they do twice a year. It's called Picket Time on 59. And basically everyone in the community that's on 59, it's basically like a massive garage sale thing. And they go up and down 59, and it is just packed with cars. Okay. And this building is right in the path of that. And I asked the guy that we're getting it from, I said, so when Picket Time on 59 happens, how busy is it here? He said, we're swamped. He says, we have people out our ears coming into the shop. And so I really, really, really want to have a storefront of some kind. And so what I'm thinking is it's a 40-foot wide building. So I'm thinking of taking 15 by 40 and breaking it into 3 areas. A shop front, a office area for me and Weston, and we'd be sharing an office. We're not going to get our own. Just like an office that has like 2 desks. I'd like to have enough room for 3 desks, ideally. That way, if we hire someone else, there'll just be one office space. And then a inspection area that's just set aside. It's just a clean room for inspecting and shipping stuff out. So that's my idea. Here's my problem. And it's a plumbing problem. The bathroom up front, I would like to have it where if people are coming into the front area, then there is a restroom that they can use. And that restroom also goes out to the shop. So I'd like to have it be a public restroom or one for the shop. The problem with that is that if I break it into thirds, the front door is in the center, and all the plumbing is in the corner. And there's not really a good layout way I can do it where the shop can have a bathroom and the front can have a bathroom, and I can divide it up into thirds to have a showroom area because of where the bathroom is and where the door is to get in. So I'm trying to figure out how to break that up. Because if you imagine the shop front, the door's basically in the center front of the building, and the bathroom's in the back corner.
I mean, you can put another bathroom in, probably the most expensive way. I'm not sure it's justified having a storefront though. Like
that's the other side.
So this is the cost of not focusing on anything. If you focused on being just a job shop, you don't need a sign out front. You could just have like a no soliciting sign, and don't have your name on the shop. Like just be an anonymous little building, and that would be fine. It would save you a whole bunch of time because you
Yep.
wouldn't have to cater in to Joe who wants his,
Mm-hmm.
brake discs resurfaced or whatever.
Yep.
And you would save all this money for building out a storefront and give
Mm-hmm.
you more space for your core business.
Yeah.
So, do you really want a storefront? Is my real question.
I don't know. That's a question I need to have with Weston, because that's kind of what I was leaning towards. Because if I did that, then what I would do instead is I would have the middle portion be like the break room that went back to the shop, and then I would have the or I would have the side with the bathrooms be the break room
That
in the
makes sense.
corner, and it would also double as as a break room with a mini kitchen, and as a meeting for bringing clients in. Like, have a table that
Yep.
you could have everyone sit around for a meeting. So kind of be double duty, plus having the restroom right there. And then I would have office space, and then I would have the inspection area. The only problem with that is it puts your office space with a door leading out in that configuration, or it puts your office space with the bathroom.
Which wouldn't be bad either.
Which wouldn't be bad. It just means that if people were in the break room, they'd have to come out into the shop to go over to the restroom, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but just different. But that's kind of the direction I'm leaning. But I like the idea of having some kind of a storefront of some sort. And what I could do is I could do that middle area, and I could just have like a display case pressed up against the wall that people could look at, but wouldn't actually be. It would just be, because all we have right now is just a display case at the front of the shop, and so like it's not something we're doing a bunch of, but it's just something to show off some of the stuff we're capable of. Because I don't really want to become a storefront. I just want to be able to advertise a little bit of the stuff that we do when people come to the shop.
I think as you get ready to design this shop and build it out, you need to really carefully think about who you are as a business and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And look at where your money is actually coming from. Yes, a steady flow of $1,000 a month. It is nice. It is a good little safety cushion there. But also, if that $1,000 a month is keeping you from making $5,000 a month on the job shop side, then
it's
it may not be worth it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thought I had, and that's kind of the direction I'm leaning. I need to run it past Weston to make sure he's on board with it. But with my layout, that it really hit home when I was trying to do the layout, because I was like, what am I doing here? Am I wasting time and money trying to do something like this, or does it make sense for our business? So I've already been having those thoughts. And if I do that, I can have a larger office. Like, I can distribute the stuff in a more reasonable fashion if I play my cards right. So it makes sense to have the break room with next to the bathrooms, because I also would like to have a sink in the break room.
That does make sense.
So,
and let's see, the problem with adding a bathroom or a sink somewhere else is that you have a big slab of concrete as your floor and the plumbing has to go somewhere.
Yep, that's the big problem. With the sink, it's not as bad, but with the toilet, you can't really, like a sink, you could probably plumb through the wall if you had it just angled it out. But with a toilet, it has to go through the concrete.
Not necessarily. You could get a grinder toilet like you would put in a basement and send it up and over.
That just sounds nasty.
Yeah, don't knock into that pipe with a forklift.
Yeah. So, concrete.
Yeah. I would love, I cannot express to you how much I would love to have a bathroom out here. But it would involve like putting in a tiny septic tank or a really, really long run to our septic tank.
Yeah.
Which I'm still considering this might be worth it. But
yeah. So I don't really want to tear up the concrete if I can avoid it. It's not the end of the world if that ends up being what we have to do, but I would prefer to avoid that as much as possible. Because we've already talked about there's no floor drain in the shop anywhere. Yeah. And we have talked about tearing up the concrete to put in a floor drain. And if you're going to do that, you might as well go ahead and get your plumbing for a bathroom.
Why do you want a floor drain?
Just in case you have like a coolant spill or something. I don't want the shop to flood. Like if we ever get
full of chips. And plus then you're putting a big weak spot down your floor where you can't put a machine.
I just want to have it somewhere as a safety precaution more than anything. And it's a nice to have, not a like a hard thing that we would do.
Maybe you should just buy a Freddy. It would be cheaper than the floor drain.
The floor drain is not replacing the Freddy. The floor drain is for coolant spills.
I know.
Like
you can just Freddy it up.
If we ever get an automatic,
assuming you are in the shop.
Yeah, it is for when we are no longer there.
Yeah.
And there's a problem at the shop where water is coming out of places.
I flood my shop on a regular basis, so I'm a little desensitized.
Yeah. I don't want to flood this shop. That's hence floor drain.
And don't hire me, because I have a bad tendency to do that. I cannot be trusted with faucets, by the way, in case you were wondering. Faucets and buckets. Don't mix.
I always set a timer on my phone.
I probably should.
So because I used to overflow or let it sit there for like 10 minutes and just be wasting water. And so I've gotten into the habit now that anytime I have a bucket of water, I know exactly how much time at full blast I can leave it under the sink up to a certain point. And so I just set my timer. In this case, it's about 2 to 3 minutes, depending on if I'm using hot or cold water. Hot water, for whatever reason, fills up the bucket a minute faster than cold water.
Interesting.
And just because there's just a lot more flow rate out of the hot side of the system. And so if I'm doing hot water, I set my timer for 2 minutes. If I'm doing cold water, I set it for 3 minutes, and it'll fill up a 5-gallon bucket till about 5 inches above the top, to the top.
My problem is our RO system is very slow. And even with our like 40 gallons of reservoir, like it's still slow to get out of that little spigot we have. It's probably 10 minutes or something. It is the perfect amount of time for me to get distracted. It'll go walk away. And
all the more reason to set a timer.
I should just set a timer. You're right.
Just set a timer for 10 minutes. And even if you get over there and 10 minutes was not enough time, just know the next time you fill it, set it for 11 minutes or 12 minutes. Yeah. That's how I figured out the times for these. Is I started out, I set it at like 4 minutes, and then I came in and it was overflowing. I was like, okay, let me decrease that. 3 minutes, okay, or 3.5 minutes. Oh, still overflowing. Okay. So like I just picked an arbitrary number and then kept checking on it.
Makes sense.
So I do the same thing with our tumblers when they're running. Is I'll start a tumbler and I'll set a timer and I'll walk away. I've started using my timer on my phone for so many different things around the shop where I'll set it. And it's like, because if I don't, I will forget about the task and it will just get into a bad spot.
You need like one of the timer panels that we have for our powder coating oven. It's like an industrial kitchen timer. And it's great. It's just, you preset the timers, you just press the button and it goes until it beeps. And it beeps loudly enough, we can generally hear it over all the shop noises.
Yeah. Speaking of RO water, I'd like to add a RO water loop around the shop as well. And my plan is that I'd like to plumb it all up to city water in the beginning, but I'd like to have a connection point where I can split it and put a RO system and switch it over if I need to. And if I get really fancy, I'd have a valve where I can switch between RO water or city water, depending on what I'm doing.
For the whole loop?
Yeah. So you just have because you're probably going to need a pump to do an RO system.
Yes.
And so what I was thinking of is you could have a pump and you could have a ball valve for the lead in, and you could have it either pull in from the RO system or pull in from the city system. And then you could just have it pump out. Like if you're switching between the two, you could just have it pump for a predetermined amount of time. And because you could have the loop come all the way around, and you could have a valve that you open to drain it and just have it set for a pre amount of time to drain the loop.
That feels like a big pain for no advantage. Because anything you can do with city water, you can do with RO water.
True. The other option is just have it switch on a valve, and then you get a little bit of RO water in with your city water, a little bit of city water in with your RO water, and who cares? But the main advantage being that most of the time it would just be RO water once I got switched over. I would very rarely need city water.
You would never use the city water.
So the only time I would ever need the city water is if we're ever like cleaning the shop.
Yeah.
And I don't want to drain all my RO water. And at that point, I just might be switch a ball valve. That way you don't drain all your RO water.
But even then, RO water is way better for cleaning.
True. Yeah. It just depends on how fast the process is and how fast we're going through it. Like I'm just trying to be future proof. As that term is probably thrown around way too much. Like if it's something that I would like to do and I'm going to be putting stuff, embedding it in walls, then I would like to try to plan for it on the front end. That way I don't have to try to retrofit something on the back end.
Well, remember when I originally said that it was going to cost you 4 times as much as you think it would?
You're going to double that to 8?
Yes, after this conversation, it's going to cost you 8 times more than you think it will.
Yes and no.
No,
I'd like to do as much of the work. I'd like to do as much of the work myself.
Yeah.
To offset that cost, because it doesn't cost, like, if I run all the electrical wire and if I run all of the air and I run all of the water lines and I drill all the holes and I run all the lines and I do all that work myself, like, the actual supplies aren't going to be that much more if I add a valve in there to be able to switch between the systems, or
that's true.
Like the actual cost isn't going to be that much more for those little tweaks that sound like they're big things, but it's just like extra ball valve, extra T-fitting.
With your amount of confidence, I'm raising it to 10 times more than you think it's going to be. If you were less confident, I would lower that number, but
I'm going to price it all out on spreadsheets. So before
12 times more.
12 times. No matter what I say, I'm going to wing it. Let's go down
8
now.
times more.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. I'm going to pay a random guy I found off the street and tell him what I want.
6 times more.
Oh, sweet.
Anyway, my allergies or cold or whatever this is killing me. Do you want to take us out here?
Yeah, sure. Guys, thanks for hanging out and listening with us this evening. Hopefully you enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully it was a little more streamlined this time. I thought we actually had some good things to talk about today. So like and tell all your friends. And this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Design the Everything.
Apparently I'm allergic to podcasting today. So sorry about that, guys. Bye.